In today's video script, I've never told anyone this, because if I say it out loud, it becomes real. It happened in the living room just after 6 in the morning, in Seattle. The sun wasn't fully up yet, but the sky had that pale gray wash that only comes in early hours, the kind that makes shadows look softer and secrets easier to hide. I was still in my nightdress, holding a cloth in my hand, trying to clean up a spill. And that's when it happened. A man kissed me. Not just any man, but the one person I should never have let close. The mug slipped from my fingers so fast I didn't even realize what I'd done until I heard it hit the hardwood. Tea spread across the floor in a slow, deliberate stain. I cursed under my breath and dropped down quickly, knees pressing against the cold wood as I tried to soak it up with the cloth. The hem of my nightdress brushed against my thighs, clinging damply where the liquid reached. It wasn't meant to be like this. I hadn't meant to be so careless. But life has a cruel way of turning accidents into moments you can't forget. I didn't hear him at first. Not until the floor creaked behind me. Not until I felt a shift in the air. The kind of change you don't notice with your eyes but with your skin. The way it suddenly feels heavier, warmer. I froze. My hand pressed into the puddle, but I didn't move. I knew who it was. Even before I turned, I knew. He stepped closer, and the weight of it settled over me. Not his hands, not his voice, not even his breath yet. Just his presence. I didn't move. I didn't cover myself. I didn't even breathe. Then his voice came, low, uncertain but steady enough to reach me. "You okay?" I should have said yes and stood. I should have laughed it off, told him I was fine, told him to give me space. But I didn't. I just nodded without looking back. And my silence was enough for him to take one step closer. When his hand brushed against my arm, it wasn't forceful. It wasn't rushed. It was almost hesitant, like he was asking a question I wasn't brave enough to put into words. I looked over my shoulder and found his eyes, not on the spilled tea, not on the cloth, but on me. And in that gaze, I saw something I hadn't seen in years. Not pity, not judgment, but recognition. It was like he was looking at me, not through me. As if the version of myself I'd hidden, the one I thought had disappeared under years of exhaustion, arguments, and half-kept promises, was suddenly visible again. My breath caught. My hands trembled. And the cloth slipped from my grip. The space between us tightened like a rope pulled taut. I knew what should happen. I knew the rules. But my body, it betrayed me. When he leaned closer, I didn't pull away. When his lips touched the side of my neck, soft, tentative, searching, I let him. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't impulse. It was need. Human. Raw. Overdue. I tilted my head, just slightly. Enough for him to understand. Enough for him to press another kiss lower, softer, closer to the place where my heartbeat trembled against my skin. I whispered, "This isn't okay." But I didn't move. And neither did he. The silence stretched between us, thin and dangerous, threatening to rip. And then for the first time in so long, I didn't feel invisible anymore. When it was over, when he finally pulled back and the room felt colder again, I stayed where I was. Still on the floor. Still trembling. Still holding the cloth that was now useless against the stain spreading wider across the wood. I didn't know if I felt guilty or alive. Maybe both. All I knew was that something inside me had shifted. Something I couldn't put back, no matter how hard I tried. The silence after he left didn't just fill the room. It filled me. Like water seeping into cracks I didn't even know existed. I sat there on the hardwood floor, cloth limp in my hand, staring at the dark stain spreading wider with each second. I could have gotten up. I could have cleaned it, changed my dress, opened the windows to let the cold morning air in. But I didn't. Instead, I stared. Because in that stain, in that mess, I saw myself. Something spilled. Something I couldn't undo. It wasn't always like this. There was a time when I woke up to the smell of coffee he brewed just for me. When I'd find little notes on the counter. "Good luck with your meeting," or "Don't forget lunch." Back then love was loud. Even in small ways. It was the kind of noise you didn't even notice until it was gone. And then slowly, piece by piece, it vanished. The note stopped. The coffee was just for him. The mornings turned quiet, like he had nothing left to say. I told myself it was normal. That marriages shift, settle, cool. That maybe silence was just another form of love. But silence isn't love. Silence is absence. That's why, when he kissed me, the man I wasn't supposed to want, I didn't move. Because in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not passion. Not lust. But recognition. Someone saw me. Not the wife who paid bills. Not the woman who held everything together while her husband worked late nights and came home distracted. Not the ghost of someone he used to love. No. This man saw me. And that's why it hurt. Because the guilt came fast, cruel, sharp as glass in my chest. The moment the warmth left my skin, the questions flooded in. What have I done? Why didn't I stop him? Why didn't I want to? I told myself it was nothing. Just a moment. Just weakness. But deep down I knew better. It wasn't nothing. It was everything. And that's why it hurt. Because the guilt came fast, cruel, sharp as glass in my chest. The moment the warmth left my skin, the questions flooded in. What have I done? Why didn't I stop him? Why didn't I want to? I told myself it was nothing. Just a moment. Just weakness. But deep down I knew better. It wasn't nothing. It was everything. One night, I asked my husband if he still loved me. Not in a dramatic way, not with tears or shouting. Just a quiet question, while we were both in bed, staring at the ceiling. He didn't answer right away. He just sighed, rolled over, and said, "Of course. Why would you even ask that?" But he didn't look at me when he said it. And that silence, it told me more than his words ever could. That morning in the living room, sitting on the floor with trembling hands, I realized something brutal. I hadn't wanted his brother, friend, guest, whoever he was. Not really. I had just wanted anyone to see me again.